record this morning for two things: the initial disposition for Jarrell Turnus, as well as the trial for Ms. Angel Rosas. We have the request for the sequestration of witnesses and an order of events to announce, but I'll let everybody do appearances first.
Lee Heights, lawyer, guardian ad litem.
Ms. Taja Thomas, counsel for the department. I present with Ms. Deja Miles, who is the CPS investigator, and Mr. Kristen Smith, who is the foster care worker. Ms. Miles, can you please state your name for the record?
Deja Miles with the department.
And Ms. Smith, can you please state your name for the record?
Kristen Smith, Catholic Charities.
Michael McFarland, representing Mother. Please introduce yourself.
Angel Rosas.
Michael Brooks, I represent Jarrell Turnus, who's the legal father of at least two of these kids and putative father of a third.
All right, Ms. Amber Turnus, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Amber Turnus, beyond Jarrell's daughter.
Thank you. All right, Mr. McFarland, you asked for sequestration of the witnesses, which would include Ms. Amber Turnus. Is that right?
Correct.
Anyone else you'd like to make sure that we have sequestered, or anybody else have any other witnesses that we should?
I trust that DHHS is and get all the witnesses.
Sounds good.
Other than the caseworkers, I know they are entitled to stay. So.
Very good. All right, so we're going to begin with the trial, and then we'll jump over to the pretrial and the disposition issue. So, because that's we have a doctor in our waiting room, we want to honor his time. But before we do that, are there any other preliminary issues or preliminary opening statements by any of our attorneys?
I have an opening statement. I usually wouldn't start, so.
Thank you, Your Honor. This matter, as the court knows, must be proven by preponderance of the evidence, and that burden is on the department to prove. Before you are two petitions. One was the original petition in June surrounding circumstances for the minor children. And I'll leave their names off the record because I believe we are on YouTube at this time. And then a second petition, a supplemental petition, came in for a newborn in August. The crux of both petitions really surround, as relates to Ms. Rosas, the inability to adequately and safely parent her children in a manner that has left them free from any harm, whether that would be physical or psychological. Today, we will hear from a medical doctor from the University of Michigan Child Protection Team regarding the observations that professional observed for the two older children. We have certified medical records from ProMedica relating to the youngest child, and both of those pieces of evidence demonstrate that mom has a low frustration threshold when it comes to parenting her children, may present volatile towards other professionals, and not have an understanding of the developmental needs of her children. Because of those things in and of themselves, we believe that would be sufficient to establish jurisdiction on those points. We also have Ms. Amber Turnus, who lived with the respondent parents in Kentucky and experienced firsthand the abuse, the physical abuse that is also present in this case. And with that, Your Honor, we would ask the court to take into consideration the testimony from the witnesses and the petition when you do make your decision at the end of this case. Thank you.
Mr. McFarland.
I reserve my opening statement until it's our case approved, Your Honor.
Any comments this morning, Mr. Brooks?
No, Your Honor. I should point out my client's not here.
That's true. Have you heard from him?
No.
All right, so Ms. Thomas, at some point we'll look for your caseworkers to tell us what, if any, information they might have on that.
Yes, we do have some information for this morning on that point.
Anything from you this morning, Ms. Heights?
Your Honor, I visited with the children face to face, and their needs are being met in their current placement. The boys' placement is changing pretty soon, but at the present time, all their needs are met. Thank you.
Our first witness, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. And I would call Dr. Carla Parkin Joseph.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Parker Joseph, can you please tell us where you are employed?
I am a physician at CS Mott Children's Hospital as part of the University of Michigan, Michigan Medicine.
And at Michigan Medicine or at Mott's, what is your job title?
I am a child abuse pediatrician on the hospital system's child protection team.
And what education or qualifications do you have for that job?
So I am a medical doctor. I received my medical degree from the University of Toledo College of Medicine in 2010. From there, I completed a general pediatrics residency at the Children's Hospital of Michigan in Detroit. So at that point, I became board certified in general pediatrics. I stayed in Detroit at the Children's Hospital of Michigan for an additional year as a chief general pediatrics resident before going on to my fellowship in child abuse pediatrics at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I completed that program in 2017 and became board certified in child abuse pediatrics as well at that time in 2017.
And how long have you been at Michigan Medicine or with Michigan
Since
Medicine?
August of 2017.
Okay, wonderful. Your Honor, with that, I would move to admit this witness as an expert witness in the field of medical child abuse and neglect.
No position, Your Honor.
I have no client, no position.
I have no objection to her being qualified as an expert.
Thank you. I will recognize her. She has testified confidently that she is board certified in child abuse pediatrics, and I will recognize her expertise in that area. Go ahead.
Dr. Parker Joseph, about how many children do you either see personally or provide consultation on with other medical professionals per month?
I would estimate an average of probably about 10 to 12 patients a month. And that's in all aspects of the field. So when there's concern for physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect. I see patients for a number of reasons.
So on average, maybe 120 patients a year, and you've been doing that for the last 7 years?
Correct, yes.
So about 840 patients about in the last 7 years, if my math's correct.
Approximately, yes.
And have you testified to in court regarding any of your findings or observations relating to those patients that you've treated or provided consultation on?
Yes, I have.
So you're familiar with this process?
Yes.
Do you recall consulting or either providing, do you recall providing care to or consulting on a matter involving the Turnus minors?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And to prepare for this trial, were you able to review any of the medical records or case notes?
Yes, I did.
Do you think that during your testimony today that you will need to refresh your memory with any of those documents?
Possibly, yes.
I just asked that if you do, whether it's me asking a question or another attorney, that you just let us know that you need to do that. And we may ask what document you're looking at, but just let us know that you do have to refresh your memory, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. In your preparation for this trial, did you review a child protection team brief consult note that was provided to the CPS worker, Ms. Miles?
Yes, I did.
And was that dated June 4th of 2024?
I believe it was June. The note itself was created on June 3rd. It may have been June 4th that it was provided to CPS.
Okay, thank you for that. And based on your recollection and review of the file, what were the presenting issues for those two minor children when they were seen by your team?
My team and myself had been alerted that both Nicholas and Paul were being
Objection. Since we're going out on YouTube, could we just use initials for the minor children?
Yes, Dr. Park and Joseph, we're on YouTube, and so to help protect the children's identity, that's why I refer to them as the Turnus minors or the children. If you would like to just say J or N, that's, I'm sorry, P or N, that's also fine.
I apologize.
No, thank you.
So my team had been alerted that the children had been admitted to the hospital with concerns for physical abuse and neglect. So the children had been admitted with some bruising that was concerning for physical abuse. And there was also concern that was raised about their small size, that they were both smaller than would be expected for other boys their age. So there was some concern, for failure to thrive, which is just that a child, who is not gaining weight as would be expected.
And what methods did you and your team use to either confirm or rule out those medical diagnoses, I guess? So whether that was failure to thrive, whether it was physical abuse or medical neglect, can you just take us through that process of what happens and how you came to your final conclusions?
Yes. So in general, when I am consulted here in the hospital, again, generally a concern is already raised by a medical professional for any type of abuse or neglect. And so my general process is to begin by gathering information. And my team does that by meeting with caregivers, obtaining history from available caregivers at the time. So in this case, this was the children's mother who was present at the bedside. So history was gathered from the mother. And we also gather information from available medical records as well. So I was able to review records from a prior emergency department visit within the ProMedica health system that both children had had in the month of May of 2024. I was not able to see any primary care physician records. At times, we are able to evaluate those records if they're readily available to us at the time of our consultation. We also, during the time of the hospitalization, will follow with the primary medical team that's caring for the children in order to determine, as you mentioned, that cause potentially of failure to thrive. So, general pediatricians are able to evaluate children for those things and for potentially underlying medical conditions that would explain the failure to thrive, that would explain the poor weight gain. So we're gathering information during the hospitalization as well. We do a physical examination as well as review of laboratory evaluation, so blood work in this case. And both boys also had some imaging, some x-rays that were done as part of the abuse evaluation. And so we take all of that information together with my background in child abuse pediatrics to formulate a final assessment as to the likelihood of abuse or neglect in the presentation of the children.
And based on that process, what were your final diagnoses for each child? For N, who was, I believe, 2 years and 3 months old at the time, he had some bruising that was noticed on his forehead and kind of on his shins, his knees. I believe there were some bruises overlying his ribs on his torso as well. And then, as I mentioned, the x-rays that were done did not identify
any broken bones or anything of concern in his skeleton or on those x-rays. And then in regard to his weight, he was noted to be a failure to thrive. So he did have a low weight. However, the laboratory studies that had been performed by his primary medical team did not identify an underlying medical cause for that failure to thrive. And N continued to eat well throughout his hospitalization and did show consistent weight gain, over the course of his hospitalization, which again would support that there wasn't a medical condition causing his failure to thrive. Those bruises that I mentioned, could be caused just by the child kind of typically interacting with his environment. It's kind of the forehead, bony prominences like shins, knees, elbows. Those are common places that we see bruising on toddlers. So while physical abuse couldn't be completely excluded as a possibility or as a potential cause of his bruising, it's still, again, a possibility. I just could not make that diagnosis based on the information that I had at the time. In regard to his failure to thrive, as I mentioned, there wasn't any underlying medical condition that would explain that. And with adequate calorie intake, he, again, was consistently, which would suggest that potentially he was not receiving enough calories in order to grow as we would expect.
Okay, I just want to kind of go back to the front. You have been referring to this child as N. My notes reflect that child P would have been the child that would have been 2 years and 3 or 4 months at that time. Is your testimony regarding child P then?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it was regarding child P, who is just over 2 years old at the time of my consultation. I apologize.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, so then as relates to child N, who for my notes would have been about 16 months at the time of evaluation, is that what your records reflect? Okay, what were your findings for child N?
So N also had a couple of skin findings. So he had a scrape, I believe, like on his lower leg, and a kind of a healing scab on his lower leg as well. I did not see any other signs of bruising or anything like that. So again, as I mentioned for child P, these again for a child that is ambulatory, is up and moving around and walking and learning to walk really, interacting with their environment. This is, potentially injuries that could happen as a result of that normal interaction with their environment. So, again, I could not completely exclude physical abuse as a cause of those findings. I think there were also other possibilities as to how those had occurred. N was also a low weight as well, which would qualify him for a diagnosis of failure to thrive. As with his older sibling, the laboratory work did not identify a medical condition to explain his failure to thrive. And he also showed weight gain during his hospitalization and was able to eat safely on his own as a typical child. So again, that would again raise concern for possible neglect and failure again to provide adequate calorie intake to support his normal growth.
Did N have, how was his skeletal survey?
Yes. So on his skeletal survey, his x-rays that were done, he did have a healing tibial fracture, which I believe was on the left side, if I remember correctly. And at the time of his presentation, that fracture was healing, but we could see that it was what we would call a toddler's fracture. So it is a relatively common fracture that can be seen in toddlers when there's kind of a fall and twisting around that leg. So again, it was healing at the time of the at his presentation. So, you know, we can't pinpoint exactly when that happened, but we do know that that healing process takes about 10 to 14 days before it's visible on X-ray. So we know that at least that's, you know, a couple of weeks old, most likely, by the time we did the X-rays on his presentation to the hospital. So in regard to that, again, I cannot completely exclude physical abuse as a cause of that fracture, but because it is, you know, a common fracture that we see, you know, in that age group and that developmental stage.
I think a question maybe outstanding to everyone is like, okay, well, the bruising might be related to developmentally appropriate interactions with the environment, and this fracture that's healing may have been as a result of the same sort of behaviors from the child. Then did the parent really do anything wrong? Can you help us understand maybe what a reason prudent parent might do in those circumstances, or how they might know their child is failure to thrive or there's a fracture that needs to be medically treated?
Yeah, so in regard to the fracture, I would expect that child N would have you know, some symptoms of discomfort, especially upon bearing weight. And I would expect there to be some pain at the time. So I would imagine that he would probably have decreased use of that leg. He might be okay while crawling if he's crawling on his knees, but I would expect that, you know, there would be a change in his activity level, that he wouldn't be pulling to stand and he wouldn't be wanting to put weight on that leg as a result of the fracture. Typically, that is how these fractures are found and are discovered and brought to medical attention, because a parent notes that there is a change in activity or pain, you know, crying, irritability that accompanies that fracture. So I think it is a little unusual that, you know, we have when child N presented that we found the healing fracture because there wasn't a history from the child's mother regarding, you know, a fussy period or, you know, those pain symptoms or change in activity, as I mentioned. In regard to the failure to thrive, I think the biggest thing that would help a parent recognize that their child was not gaining weight as expected would be the routine medical care that's recommended, you know, at scheduled intervals in order to monitor the child's weight gain and growth and their development as well, you know, throughout that, you know, kind of early childhood, toddlerhood as well. So I think, you know, lacking that information and the child not following with their a routine medical provider, you know, really limits, you know, the ability to kind of find any issues and intervene quickly and appropriately.
You mentioned that part of your review of the records included medical records from ProMedica in May.
Yes, I believe there was one ER visit on May 17th to Hickman Hospital.
And were there, based on your review and recollection, were there any concerns about abuse at that time with the doctor who saw the children at ProMedica?
The records just documented that the children had come in for, you know, potentially a CPS or Child Protective Services issue. But at that time, there weren't any documented injuries. And that doctor did not have specific concerns for abuse as a result of that medical encounter.
Based on your encounters with the children, the record review, the skeletal surveys or the imaging, did you have concerns about child abuse and neglect for these two children?
So I can't completely exclude the possibility of abuse, in both children's findings. But I think it is still a possibility. But there's also other possibilities that could potentially cause the findings for both children. In regard to the failure to thrive, I believe that there is neglect that could cause that failure to thrive, and just really failing to provide adequate intake in order to support both boys' growth, as well as medical neglect as well, and again, failing to provide that kind of routine medical care that would allow identification of any issues and intervention.
During the children's hospitalization, were there concerns about any of the interactions between the mother and children that were apparent to you or to team members?
Yes, there was a documented incident, I believe, on June 1st. During the hospitalization, in which a bedside nurse had entered the patient's room. And at that time, both of the boys were in one room, even though they, had to stay in separate rooms. They were housed in different separate rooms while they were hospitalized. But the nurse entered, I believe, child N's room to note their mother spanking child P. And I believe stating something along the lines of, they don't listen, or something like that, as a result. So this was prior to my consultation with the child's mother. So we did also discuss, spanking and research surrounding that, and that we generally recommend against spanking as a form of punishment or discipline, and discussed other ways that to guide a child and to discipline a child.
Was there anything else that stood out to you about either the affect or the behaviors of the mother in this matter?
During my consultation and during my time in the room with both children and mother, I do recall that I was concerned for her health because she was also pregnant at the time and seemed very uncomfortable. But otherwise, she was able to provide some history, but due to what she says, being in and out of the hospital herself with her own pregnancy, she was not able to provide a lot of details about the care of the children, obviously because she was, in the hospital at the time and wasn't providing direct care to the children.
Thank you for that. I have no further questions, but other attorneys may. Thank you.
Doctor, as I recall, the child with the healing break did not demonstrate or did not show any break or fracture when the child came in. It was only when an X-ray was taken that was discovered, correct?
That's correct, yes. He was walking normally at the time that he presented.
And so you're saying this would have occurred, if I heard you correctly, maybe 10 days prior? Is that what I'm hearing?
Potentially, yes.
So you can't say with a medical certainty that mother would have known that the child had a fracture if the child presented the way the child presented to the hospital staff, correct?
I believe that he would have shown, or potentially could have shown, some symptoms at the time of the injury. But being that, at the time that he presented, it was healing. I imagine that a lot of that, if he was in pain or any limited, mobility would have really resolved at that time.
Child could also have crawled more than walked, which would not have been noticed so much by parents, correct?
Possibly, yes.
Also, the child could have perhaps a parent could also have mistaken a sprain for the symptoms that you're describing, correct?
Possibly, yes.
If the child did not present 10 days after this at the hospital with symptoms, is it possible within 5 days that the child would not present with symptoms?
Again, I would expect there to be some pain and discomfort at the time of the injury. But really it would be the, the parent or caregiver that would need to recognize that in order to bring them to medical attention.
You can't with a medical certainty tell us when any exhibition of pain or discomfort would stop, correct?
Correct, I cannot.
And once again, you cannot pinpoint that my client, which is the mother, that she was aware of this, as she indicated that she had been in and out of the hospital, correct?
Correct.
You said that both of these children presented as, is it malnourished or undernourished? What is your classification?
So the diagnosis that I made is failure to thrive.
Okay.
Which is kind of failing to demonstrate appropriate weight gain.
How much was the youngest child? What was the child's weight when the child came in?
I would have to look back at my documentation for that.
Please do.
And
Please
you
do.
said that the youngest child?
Yes, please. I'm going to ask you about both children, just to give you a heads up. I'm going to ask you the weight when they came in and the weight when they left, unless you know what the weight gain was for each child. Do you know what the weight gain was for each child?
Yeah, it's in my documentation.
Yes, please. It just tells us what the weight gain was for the youngest, and then tell us the weight gain for the oldest.
So for child N, the youngest, he gained about 5 ounces in his, I believe, 8-day hospitalization. And for child P, he gained about 9.5 ounces in his also 8-day hospitalization.
Okay, now what was the weight of the youngest child when that child came in?
His weight was 16 pounds and about 8.5 ounces.
So percentage figures, 5 ounces is really not an awful lot, correct?
Correct.
And now the oldest child, what was that child's weight when that child came in?
He was 22 pounds and almost 8 ounces.
Once again, the weight gain that you said compared to the total body weight is really not an awful lot, correct?
Correct.
And these children were pretty sedentary at the hospital, which means they weren't running around. They were not doing a lot of activities which would burn off weight, correct?
They were still able to move about their hospital room and had toys, actually even had a mat on the floor so that they were able to play on the floor as well.
So you viewed them the entire time frame to know that they were active as they were at home or not?
I did not, no. That was just, I'm just speaking of my consultation, my time in the room with the patients and their mother.
Okay. Now, you didn't actually see mother inappropriately treating these children, did you?
I did not.
And did you question mother about the allegations about her treatment of the children as per the notes that you referenced earlier?
I know that I discussed it with mom because again, that had happened prior to my consultation. that it had occurred. I don't believe that I questioned her specifically about that.
Is there a reason why you wouldn't question her if you are an abuse investigator?
Well, I'm not an investigator, I'm a physician, but I, provided information from, the American Academy of Pediatrics about, the recommendation against spanking and for other forms of discipline.
In your training, you were aware that in Michigan, it is not illegal for a parent to exercise reasonable corporal punishment. You are aware of that, correct?
I am, yes.
As a matter of fact, nobody called law enforcement to pursue criminal charges against my client for spanking her child, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this line of questioning. It's argumentative.
No, it's not argumentative, it's factual.
It is, Your Honor. It's calling a conclusion without the witness being able to testify to a fact that the witness has actual notice of or awareness of.
This witness testified my client spanked the child. So I'm getting into, is that really an issue? Or is it basically just a hospital formality that they do not want to have a child spanked? Let me rephrase the question.
Mr. McFarland, before you do, I just want to let you know that I did hear that, and she has sort of already addressed that just by simply saying that she addressed the research on the issue with mom. She really didn't express judgment on it one way or the other than to say that she shared the research on it, and she's not really taking a position on whether it's legal or illegal or abusive or not, as far as I understand. Is that right, doctor? Have I got the right impression of your?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. I didn't get that impression, but now that she's clarified that, I will move on. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks, do you have any questions?
I do not, Your Honor.
Leaves us with Ms. X.
Thank you. Doctor, when you were talking about the boys being underweight and your assessment of failure to thrive, isn't there usually like a percentage of height and weight that parents know are given from their physician?
Yes, so every time a child comes in and has a weight or height or length, head circumference measured, that is plotted on either a CDC or a WHO growth chart, so that we can compare that child, to the rest of the population, as I mentioned, same gender and same age as that child.
Do you have those percentages for these children when you saw them on intake?
I would have to go back and look at my documentation to give that, but I don't recall the exact numbers.
Would you please do that?
Yes. So child P, the older child, when he presented to our hospital on May 31st, presented with a weight at about the 0.8th percentile. So they were less than the first percentile for age and sex. And patient N, the younger child, when he presented at about the 0.12 percentile. So again, less than the first percentile for age and sex.
Thank you. And does their height explain any of that low scale number?
No, so that was based just purely on their weight. And so that is not necessarily adjusting for their height, but they were also noted to be, their stature was noted to be short, compared to, again, the rest of the population of that age and sex.
Thank you. When you reviewed the record from ProMedica, did they show you any x-rays of the children?
No, I don't believe there were any x-rays done for the children at that time.
The tibia fracture for N, is that something that at the time of injury might have swelled or shown redness of his skin?
So it's possible that there may have been some swelling, but in regard to redness or even bruising, it's possible that there may not have been any bruising.
Okay. Do you think a satisfactory treatment for that injury would have been to place the child in a playpen for several days until he stopped complaining of pain?
No, I believe that the child should have medical attention so that their pain can be appropriately addressed. And so that fracture can be immobilized so that he can be put in a cast, so that there wouldn't be any further injury to that, while it's starting to heal.
In the ProMedica records that you reviewed, did that treatment provider note lack of compliance with recommended medical evaluation of the children over time?
Yes, I believe so. That I believe there was note that the children did not have a regular primary care physician that they were following for their routine care.
Okay. Where do parents these days get the information that the children are required to be seen medically every so often? Where does that information get communicated to parents?
So it's communicated even at the birth hospitalization. So when the child is born, I know in our hospital system, we like to have a plan at least in place for follow-up visits with a primary care physician. So, even, prior to that as well, even prenatal visits, it's communicated, that the child should have, routine medical care and should have a provider in place in order to receive that care. And then, once that first visit happens, after the newborn hospitalization, then, at that time they're kind of scheduled, further on for those, regularly scheduled visits.
Okay, and then you said that bedside, you did have some conversations with mom. Did you find through that conversation or any of the records the length of time that mom or dad had lived in Michigan?
I don't recall that I had that information.
So no records from any other state were reviewed during your treatment of these two children?
That's correct. I did not have that available to me.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Doctor, there's a reference that I have to some of the records from Hickman Hospital on some of the marks on one of the child, specifically P, appeared to have a bite mark. Did they send you any information on that or any photos or anything else for you to be able to give me an idea of whether or not that's a reasonable speculation?
I would have to look back at the record, but I don't recall that specifically.
All right. Would you be able to give me an opinion on that with any certainty if you were able to evaluate that record?
I would be somewhat limited, I would say, just because it would be based, on the documentation of that medical provider, as well as, whether there are actual photographs, clinical photographs to review.
Thank you. All right, redirect.
I have none, Your Honor.
Any recross?
Just based upon the questions of the guardian ad litem. Doctor, when you take a look at the charts for the weight and the head circumference in particular that you're discussing with the guardian ad litem, these are based upon averages, correct?
Yes, so the growth charts are developed by looking at, as I mentioned, all children, or a large population of children of the same age and sex. So it is, so that we can place them, the percentiles then would tell us, where they land in that range of normal.
So in calculating an average, am I correct that some would have smaller head circumferences, some larger, and then that's how they determine an average? Is that how that's done?
Yes, yes.
Is there an acceptable deviation that you're aware of?
Like in regard to failure to thrive, failure to thrive is a child that's presenting with a weight for age and sex less than the 5th percentile. Again, we're looking at, when we're evaluating these as pediatricians, we're looking for, the extremes. The children that are kind of at either end of a bell curve.
Okay. You had mentioned that, well, Gary Lyman was speaking to you, and I guess one of the solutions might have been to put this child in a cast, the child with a fracture, correct?
Correct.
Yet, despite not doing that, there is no permanent damage to this child. You said it was healing normally. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Nothing further.
Mr. Brooks? Any questions, Mr. Brooks?
I have none.
Ms. Heiss?
No, thank you.
All right, any reason we should not thank and excuse the doctor?
No objection.
No objection.
No reason not to.
Okay, thank you for your time and your testimony, Dr. Parker Joseph. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. All right, taking a break from the trial for a moment. As it relates to the father, I know we were scheduled for the initial disposition today, but there was an issue related to paternity that I know needs to be addressed. Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Honor. I can have Ms. Smith sworn in if you'd like, but I can also just give a brief update based on my conversation with Ms. Smith, but however you'd like me to approach
Why don't
that.
you start with your update, and if the attorneys have any additional questions or I do, we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Turnus was scheduled for a DNA test with the youngest child. It was done on Friday, so we do not have those results back at this time. Mr. Turnus did indicate to Ms. Smith that he intended on being here. He was riding a bike from Jackson and encountered a flat tire, so I believe that accounts for him not appearing today. He does have the Zoom information, so I'm not sure if he was able to call in, but based on the court report that Ms. Smith has provided today, he did sign a case service plan, so I believe that that has gone, Ms. Smith has reviewed that with him, and it seems that he, based on the report, is starting to look into some services.
I see in our proposed list of exhibits some DNA test reports on P and N. So in your opinion, is that intended to resolve any questions about his legal rights to the older two children?
Yes, Your Honor, I believe that he, from my recollection of the case, that he intended to be their legal father, and he wanted to confirm with DNA to make sure we didn't run into that issue later in the road for permanency for the kiddos. So I believe that would establish him as a biological father, and we would ask the court to determine that he is a legal father as well.
Any position, Mr. McFarland? Questions?
We take no position, Your Honor.
Mr. Brooks?
I'm confused whether or not there was an AOP signed by both parties at the time of the child's birth.
Which one, the youngest or
The
one?
youngest.
Uh,
Kind of heard it both ways.
well, I think if there was, I don't have it.
Fair
That's
enough.
the problem.
We'll start with the assumption it doesn't exist. I have no further question.
Your Honor, he was not present at the hospital, is my, so I don't think so.
Well, that clarifies an issue, doesn't it?
So I think the request or the decision that has to be made, Mr. Brooks, is whether or not to proceed with the initial disposition as it relates at least to the older two children and your client.
Right.
Would include the findings that he's their legal parent, as well as ordering him into the case services plan as proposed. What is your position on that?
On which?
Any of it?
I think we need to have it to probably better to adjourn this till we know who's who. I haven't heard that the youngest child is not his, but I have had no communication with my client to indicate what he thinks, whether he thinks that's his child or not.
All right, well, if we adjourn to try to give him another chance to be here, I have some time Friday morning.
That'll be fine.
We could put it at 9:30.
Friday at 9:30. And what is Friday at 9:30? What day?
That would be October 4th. I think Miss Thomas might be out though, I just noticed.
I just need to make sure that I can leave by 10:30.
Well, I have a 10 o'clock, a 10:30 and 11. So the intention would be simply to allow enough time to do the initial disposition for him and look at that DNA issue on Friday.
I mean, as it relates to the two older children, I believe my recollection is that he's already entered a plea for adjudication purposes.
That's correct.
I believe that we were maybe holding that in abeyance until we confirmed paternity, which we are able to do now. And so as it relates to the initial disposition for those two children, I think that we could move forward today because on Friday, we're not going to have the DNA results back for the baby.
All right, the other option is the next available time frame I have is not for a couple of weeks. We have a very busy docket the next couple of weeks, so I would have October 14th if you think the DNA would be back for the youngest child.
This is just scheduling for father, correct, Your
Yes.
Honor?
It's a possibility.
What do you think about that, Mr. Brooks?
That's fine.
It's an unorthodox amount of time to adjourn out of disposition, but given the circumstances, I think it seems appropriate. What do you think, Ms. Heiss?
Yes, I think that he's riding his bicycle. Somebody said he was on Pentecost Highway, so he's made a heroic effort to get here today. I think that it also shows that he's intending to do services, whether they're voluntary or court ordered, so that a adjournment won't, I don't think, affect his participation. He intends to participate. So not knowing where he is or if he'll come today, an adjournment would be appropriate. October 14th is good for me.
All right, I have 1:30 p.m.
Yes, that works.
January 13th,
October
October
14th.
at 1:30.
Yes. And we have all day set aside for this one, so if he does show up, you can ask him what he thinks. But
Well,
no-
just so the court knows, I have a potential conflict. I was gonna advise the court of it. At 3 o'clock, I have a pretrial on the third floor, but it shouldn't take more than a few minutes. So if I'm here at 3 o'clock and he shows up, if you'll send somebody up to Judge Olsaver's courtroom, I'll come down.
Sounds great, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, well, for now, the plan for Mr. Turnus will be then to adjourn his initial disposition as well as the pretrial on the petition 2 to October 14th at 1:30 p.m.
Thank you.
To allow him to be here. And please make sure he knows he can appear by Zoom too. That's a long and rather dangerous drive on a bicycle. All right, October 14th at 1:30. All right, back to the trial in hand as it relates to Ms. Angel Rosa.
May I be excused?
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
No position.
No.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks, you are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'll let you know if your client turns up. Your next witness, Ms. Thomas.
You are now called Miss Amber Turnus. Okay?
I didn't do that on
That's okay.
purpose.
I know. It's just sticking in the way. And Ms. Turnus, how are you familiar with Jarrell Turnus and Angel Rosas?
Very. Used to live with them a lot.
How are you related to either of them?
Oh, yes, I am Jarrell's daughter.
How old are you right now?
I am 19.
Sorry, just taking notes. My computer screwed a little bit. Okay. Ms. Turnus, you just testified that you've lived with Jarrell and Angel a lot.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, when did you live with them?
I lived with them in LBN, and I don't know what year it was, but then I moved back with them and they lived in Cadiz, Kentucky in 2020.
How long did you live with them in Kentucky during that 2020 period?
Not long. I wasn't even with them for a whole year.
Okay, so if you were 19 now, you were about 15 at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall how old Angel was at that time?
Angel was 21 or 20.
Okay. Can you tell us what it was like to live with your dad and Angel?
There was a lot of fighting. There wasn't much communication, I would say. Living with them, at first it would start out good. And then towards, I would say, me living with them for about a month, that's when it would go down. They would start fighting, and then I would get involved into it. There would be more fighting about me than anything else. Angel would get jealous. Sometimes when I want to spend time with my dad, she would start arguments with him about it. Or if Jarrell would let me do something that Angel didn't want me to do, that would start an argument, and then it would lead to physical. Then living with Jarrell and Angel, we lived in Jackson, Michigan. We were staying there, and something got brought up. I don't remember what it was, and that's when me and Angel got into a fist fight.
Do you know how old you would have been when you were living in Jackson?
I was 14.
Okay. So then after that, when you guys moved to Kentucky in 2020, or you're living with them, were those sorts of verbal arguments that were turning physical, were those occurring in Kentucky as well?
Yes. When I moved in with them 2020 on July 21st, like I said, it was going good until like I said, Jarrell would let me go do things, or I would sit there and ask him, hey, do you want to spend some one-on-one time? Since me and my dad, we kind of had a good bond, but not really. He was obviously gone in and out of jail a lot, so we didn't have much time to spend with each other. So when we did, it kind of was like reassuring to spend time with him, because he was my dad. But Angel would get mad and start throwing a tantrum. One day it was not even a week of me being down there. I asked to spend time with my dad, since I haven't seen them in about, I would say, a year or so. When I moved down there, she started arguing with my dad about it, and then my dad started arguing with her, and then I just got told to leave the room at that time. And shortly down the line, I found out that I was pregnant. I was 15. I brought it to my dad. I told him about it, and they start talking about school and what I was going to do. And I told them that I was going to go to school, but I was not going to go to college. That I could still take care of my kid during school. She got mad because she couldn't at that time do a full-term pregnancy. She had a lot of miscarriages. So I'm taking that she got mad that I was pregnant and that I was going to keep the
I'm
kid.
objecting, Your Honor. This is speculation. I believe that. I'm thinking that. This is not observation.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, no, I can provide an instruction. I think that's most appropriate. Yeah, Ms. Turner, when you're testifying, you can only testify to things you have direct knowledge of. So thinking or reporting what you think someone's thinking or feeling is not something you have actual knowledge of. So can you just, I'm gonna try to actually kind of rein in your testimony. I'm kind of letting you do a narrative now, but I think I'm gonna try to rein it in to help direct it. During 2020, after you told your dad you were pregnant, how were things safe in that home?
No.
Why were they not safe?
There was a lot of fighting in that house every day, but to the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. There was never.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there. So there's a lot of fighting. Were you ever physically abused by either your father or Miss Rosas?
Living with Drell, no, Drell did not put his hands on me, but Angel did.
And what do you mean she put her hands on you? What did she do to you?
She kicked me in my side underneath my ribs. When I was pregnant, she bit me in my arm. She would chase me around the house. She has physically pulled my hair. Sorry, my kid was waking up. She was just very physical when it came to a lot of things. She has punched me in my face. There was more, I would say, kicking and biting than there was really anything else.
And did she kick or bite Jarrell as well that you witnessed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions, but other attorneys may, okay?
Yes.
Mr. McFarland?
One moment, Your Honor. No questions.
Ms. Heiss?
No questions, thank you.
Any reason we should not thank and excuse Amber Turnus?
No, Your Honor.
Just one question, if you might, Your Honor. Last incident of what you claim to be fighting was about 6 years ago, correct?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further.
I have no objection to her being excused.
No objection.
Okay, thank you for your time and your testimony, Ms. Amber Turnus. You're welcome to exit our meeting.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Thomas, you're next.
Your Honor, I'll call Miss Angel Rosas.
Okay, Ms. Rosas, come on up.
You've heard the testimony from the doctor and Amber now, and you've read the petition, correct? Is that because they're making a recording, you're gonna have to answer yes or no, okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna back up quite a bit of time, back to May, okay? In May, do you recall CPS becoming involved with your family?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, why did CPS become involved?
My aunt actually called y'all guys, because I was always in and out of the hospital and I wasn't really taking care of the kids. Father was, so. There's a lot of issues going on. And she thought it would be nice for y'all to get involved.
When you say there are a lot of issues going on, can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that?
There's a lot of arguing, fighting. I was always in and out of the hospital, so that didn't really help much.
The arguments and fighting, were they similar to what Ms. Turnus testified to? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Were your children present when you guys would argue and fight?
Yes.
During that period of time, what steps did you take And we understand that you were also pregnant at that time and going in and out of the hospital a lot. What steps did you take to attempt to safeguard your children?
We couldn't really go nowhere. So we wasn't really able to do much. Even when my mom came over or my aunt, they didn't stay long. They never did.
How long had you been in a relationship with Mr. Chernos?
Going on 5 years. I met him when I was 19.
And since the beginning of that relationship, had you mostly lived with him?
We were mostly homeless, living in tents. We never really had a place that long, ever.
You need a break, just let me know, okay? You want a minute? When CPS became involved, do you recall them ever communicating to you their concerns about how bruised the children were?
Not really.
Did you have concerns about all the bruises on their bodies?
I did. I always asked her dad about him, but he always gave an excuse for him. And with them being kids, I mean, you never know. Maybe he could have fell on a toy or, you never know. You can never really get the real answer.
You reported that you guys, that you and Mr. Chernos were homeless living in tents and never had a place that long. Historically, where did you live? Like what states?
Bounced around a lot. We've been to Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, Kentucky, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, just a little bit of everywhere.
When you lived in other states, was there CPS involvement?
When I had my first son, yes, they thought he was a sex trafficker and was abusing me. So they pulled me to the side, but I didn't want to talk.
Your first son?
Um,
Okay.
That was in Texas when I had him. And after that case got closed, he wanted to move, so that's what we did.
The instances that Amber testified to, did those result in CPS involvement in Kentucky?
Yes or no?
Just police got called and everything got squashed. She went with her mom afterwards and that was it.
And did you guys leave Kentucky after that incident?
Yes, we did.
Was that sort of, do you know what I say when I say MO? Was that the MO, like if police or CPS got involved, you move? So yes.
Can I ask what MO means for the record?
MO is.
I mean, from
That's okay. Is that what you do? Is that sort of the repeated pattern?
Yes, that's what we did.
And when you had your oldest child, were you concerned about his safety or well-being with Mr. Chernos?
Not in the beginning. But as we kept moving and keep losing our place, we were in a tent one time. He got hurt while I was at work. And he said he was just playing outside, just letting him roam around. I didn't really think of it. So I most of the time I try to push it off because I think maybe it's just him being a kid. But most of the time, I was wrong.
Do you, I'm gonna just kind of ask this general question. Do you feel that you have the knowledge necessary to safely parent young children?
As a new parent in learning, yes, it's a little bit. I'm still learning. There's still things I have to learn. I'm still becoming a new parent as I'm going. I'm still learning.
You recently had another child in August, correct?
Yes.
And one of the concerns that was brought to the department's attention from that is when medical staff observed you not wanting to feed the infant every 3 to 4 hours.
It's not that I didn't want to feed her. She wasn't latching on to the nipples. You know how many times we changed those nipples throughout those times we were there? We changed them 10 times, exactly 10 times, until we found the actual right nipple she latched onto.
Were you at any point in time aggressive with the nursing staff there?
I mean, I caught an attitude, yes. With one, yes.
Can you just tell us what your frustration was? We can assume, but just for you to be able to state it.
I think she came in the room around like early in the morning, I think. I don't remember what time she came in. I was really tired. I was exhausted. And she told me to do something I don't remember. And I did it. But the baby wouldn't take the milk from me at that time. So I didn't know what she wanted me to do. So I laid her back in her little play bin, or whatever bucket you put her in after you have her. And I waited a few hours. She still didn't want to take the bottle. So I'm like, what do you want me to do? It's not like I can just stuff it down her throat and make her eat. I can't force her. If she doesn't want to eat at that time, I'm not going to force her. That's what we had an attitude about, or I had an attitude about.
Did you feel that you were able to identify your baby's needs?
Yes.
And one of the concerns noted by medical staff was on August 10th. It reports, and this is what's in the petition, is that you were verbally aggressive with the infant while you were changing her and had forcibly put a pacifier in her mouth, telling her to, I believe, like, effing take the pass or something along those lines.
I didn't say it in a rude way. I just said, can you please just take this effing in your mouth? I am tired. I didn't say it in a rude way. I didn't stick it in her mouth that rough at all. It was a soft tone that I used. It wasn't a verbal, angry. I was just tired.
And were you able to change her clothing?
Yes. I even changed her diaper too. And she pooped that exact same day. I remember that one because that one actually kind of stunk.
So as it relates to all of your, now collectively as the whole of your children, the 3 of them, when they were born, were they small?
Yes, all my kids are small.
And you heard the doctor's testimony that your 2 boys at least were not even in the first percentile of the growth charts. Were you aware of that?
No.
Had you taken your children for routine medical care?
No. If I'm trying to take care of myself and try to take care of them at the same time and expect their dad to do at least half or some of the work while I'm in the hospital, always in and out of it, you should be able to help. It shouldn't be all on me. If there's 2 parties at that time, the other party should be willing to help with the kids. Not just me, and it shouldn't be only on me.
Had you and Mr. Turnus discussed how your relationship dynamics, like the fighting, the arguing, were impacting the children at all?
We never sat down and talked. We're always arguing. We never really talked like that.
And when CPS got involved, you eventually did reach out to Catholic Prep, correct?
Yes.
Are you still there?
No.
Okay. Are you in any services to help understand that cycle of domestic violence and how to identify red flags and protect yourself in the future?
Yes.
Okay. In your relationship with Mr. Turnus, were you also the aggressor, where you would be physically assaulted?
And sometimes, yes.
At any point in time, did you ever fight or hit your children
No.
as a form of discipline?
No.
Did you ever observe any like bite marks on their bodies?
Yes, I have.
And
But
what,
that was only once, and Terrell said that Niklaus bit him at a plane, and Paul bit him back, but I didn't really think of anything, because I was at the hospital when that happened. I was coming from Toledo.
did you ever witness Mr. Turnus abusing the children?
He spanked them on their butts every now and then in front of me, but I mean, spanking on the butt, you have padding and you get the diaper. He didn't really hit him that hard on the butt in front of me.
Okay, is that the physical discipline that you also use, is just spanking on the butt?
Yep. I mean, yes, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Were you aware of any other developmental delays or areas that the children needed services in?
No.
Do you recall participating in like early on?
We did a little bit of that until we moved.
Okay.
We never really. When it comes down to stuff like that, he didn't really want us to do a lot of it.
With that, Your Honor, I have no further questions of Ms. Rosas.
Mr. McFarland?
Thanks. Just gonna move this podium so you can see me a little bit better, okay? Maybe I'll just stand up here. The two oldest children, can you tell us what kind of diet did you feed them? What kind of food? How regularly? And
When I was there, they ate 3 meals a day, well, sometimes 4, just depending.
what times were those feeding times?
Sometimes 7, sometimes 6, depending on what hour they wake up. Those are the hours sometimes.
That's AM, correct? Is that yes?
6 or 8.
Okay.
Yes.
They're recording everything, so they just
Sorry.
need a yes or no, not a nod.
So breakfast is usually around 6, 7. Lunch is around like 11, 12. Dinner is around like 8, 7 maybe ish. And maybe a little snack towards the end.
So what did their meals and their snacks consist of?
Breakfast was either eggs, chorizo with
Is that
bread.
queso?
Chorizo.
Oh, chorizo, gotcha,
Yes.
okay. Which is Mexican sausage, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's for morning. For lunch, sometimes we either, just depending, we either had pizza rolls, fries, just depending, pork chops, just whatever I felt like cooking at that time. Chicken nuggets, fries. Dinner, sometimes we did tacos, rice, beans. What was another meal they liked? They like the chicken, mashed potatoes, and mac and cheese.
Tell us about father physically. Is he big? Is he skinny, tall? What?
He's skinny. He's a toothpick.
Correct to say that you're kind of a toothpick also?
I mean, yeah, but I'm a little thicker,
Okay.
just a little bit.
Do you believe that the children were, as the doctor testified, were not receiving as much nourishment as they should have or malnourished?
They were always heavy to me. So
Now, you have your own medical issues, right?
yes, I do.
And I know you've referenced that you've been in and out of hospital, correct?
Yes, sir.
What were your medical issues that put you into the hospital several times?
My gallbladder. I can never really hold anything down for the baby.
You never really what?
Could hold food down for the baby when I was pregnant.
Okay,
My gallbladder was inflamed most of the whole pregnancy. I was told to get it taken out when I had her, but I haven't. Just because I want to work and I want to get my stuff going so I can get my kids back.
why I'm asking that in the context is that you said you were you indicated you were in the hospital a lot of the time. Is that correct?
Yes.
How about before this case was open, 30 days before, how long were you in the hospital for the pregnancy or your own personal issues?
I would say I want to say every 3 weeks out of a month.
And how long was your typical stay?
My longest stay, well, they actually had to transfer me from here to Toledo. I stayed there for about 3 weeks.
How soon before the birth of the youngest child, the newborn, were you there?
I had her on August 9th, so I stayed there for 3 days.
You heard the doctor testify about the fracture in the bone of your child, correct? And we're not going to use names. Do you have any idea at all that the child had fractured themselves? Did you hear the doctor state that a child may express pain or things of that nature, extraordinary? Did you hear that?
Yes, sir.
Did this child experience any of that you were able to view?
I mean, no, not when I was there.
Now, were you available 10 days or so prior to the child coming in?
No, sir.
Okay, so where were you?
I was at the hospital.
Okay, that was at the time when you were hospitalized?
Yes, sir.
Was that the Toledo hospital time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can't address that, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, sir.
Is it correct, any incidents you had with the father of these child, with his sister who testified that these were?
His daughter.
Huh?
His daughter.
I'm sorry, his daughter. That this was about 6 years ago?
Yes.
You the same person now that you were when you were 19?
No,
How old are you now?
I'm going on 25.
Going back to the hospital. You had your child. Let me pull up that petition. I believe I have the right one here. First of all, you have a total of how many children?
3.
Did you have any problems with the first 2 children nursing, getting them to eat or feed?
Yes.
How so?
They didn't want to latch onto the bottle just as well as their sister. I've also tried to breastfeed with them, but they wouldn't latch on, and I couldn't produce milk for them as much as they needed it, so I couldn't do that either.
Did you let the nursing staff know that you had issues with the younger 2 children in nursing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did the nurse actually show you successfully how she could nurse a child with a bottle? It says here that you more or less ordered a child protective services worker out of the room. Is that correct at the hospital?
The first lady that came around,
You know her
I
name?
didn't want to talk to her. No,
Is she in the courtroom here?
no.
Okay, you know what?
That's a different lady.
Did she identify herself, who she was, or who, or where, what agency she was from?
No, she didn't.
What was the interaction between you two?
That she just wanted to talk to me about my child and see where she was gonna go, and that was it.
She didn't say where she was from?
No,
And did you talk to her or not? want
not
to?
really. I just told her I didn't want to talk at that time, and she left.
How soon? Well, let me see. You gave birth at 1:43 in the morning, right?
Sir.
Were you able to go to bed at 1:44?
No.
How long were
I
you
was
up?
tired. I was up for almost 3 hours after.
Do you know what time it was this lady came in the morning? It sounds like you went to bed around 5. Is that about right?
Yeah,
But what time did somebody come in?
I want to say around like 6, because that's when they came and drove my blood too, and I was kind of like half up, half not. I'm like, I don't want to talk right now. Can you come back some other time? And then she came by.
And who is she?
I don't
Are you
remember.
pointing to somebody in the courtroom?
Yes.
Which person, before the first row, or the second, or the third
Like
row?
that, you?
Did he was young?
Sorry.
Okay. About what time did she approach you?
I want to say later on that afternoon. I
Okay.
want to say.
What was your interaction between her?
She told me who she was, and she didn't really want to take my baby girl, but she didn't have no other choice.
Did you order her out of the room or?
No,
Okay.
no, but she did give me some time with her before she did take her for a little bit.
The 7G of the petition about you forcibly trying to feed the child with a, you said, take the effing pacifier is what you said, edited there. Did you say anything like that?
I really don't recall, but y'all are saying I have, but I remember telling her, put this in your mouth. I don't remember saying effing, but I remember saying put this in your mouth because I'm tired.
This was 2:17 a.m., early morning hours. Did that refresh your memory at all?
I was tired.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I was
How long was your, is this a C-section or is this a natural birth?
natural.
How long were you in labor?
I want to say 16, 15 hours.
You fully recovered the day after?
No,
Letter I says that you continue to have agitation. You had extreme agitation towards the baby and staff when attempts were made by yourself to try to feed the baby. Were you agitated at the staff or the baby at all?
no, sir.
You know what agitated means?
Yes.
Tell us what you think it means.
Say I could get a little agitated right now with y'all asking me these questions, but I'm not.
Do you think it means upset or a little bit more than upset?
A little bit.
Okay, and you're telling us that that didn't happen?
No.
It also expresses concerns and that your refusal to help care for the baby throughout the night. Did anybody come in during the night? And I'm guessing this is on the night after the birth of the child, because we don't have an exact date. But anytime you're at the hospital the night, do they come by and you refuse to help with your child at all, the newborn?
And my mom and my aunt was also there in those times. They didn't leave my side, not once until they took the baby. So they're also witnesses.
Do you believe you have a basic understanding of the proper feeding of a baby?
Yes, sir.
And why babies need to be fed every 3 to 4 hours?
Yes, sir.
What is your standing about the requirements of a baby and feeding newborns?
They're not gonna know when to eat or they get that feeling when they're hungry. They don't make that decision. You have to make that decision for them.
You testified that finally a nipple was found that your baby would use, right?
Yeah.
After that, how frequently was the baby fed?
I want to say every 3 to 4 hours. And there were some times where she took it at the 4th hour. It's just dependent on her. And
So from the morning the child was born, how long was it until the correct nipple was found?
I want to say the very last day they decided to take her from me.
How many days was that? Second day.
Second day I had.
So how many feedings did you get in on a 3 to 4 hour basis before the child was taken?
I got one good one in. She ate about 10 ounces before I handed her off.
It also says here, K, that there's concerns that the minor child, we're not going to use the names, the newborn will suffer abuse or neglect if discharged to your care and custody. If this court were to close this case, saying that the burden hasn't been established that you abused or neglected this child be safe in your care.
Yes, sir.
Where would you and the newborn be living?
With a friend for right now until I'm able to save up to get my own place.
And would this friend allow CPS to take a look at the appropriateness of that place?
Yes.
Is there also room for the other 2 children, all 3 children in this case, to live there?
Not all 3 at the moment. I can probably do 1 just because they have other issues in their house that they're dealing with as well.
So would it,
But for right now, I'm able to take 1.
okay,
Just until I can get my own place. And
now,
that's a work in progress, just because I had to do it on my own. I don't get help from Linaway, or Section 8, so I gotta do it on my own. So it's just gonna take me a little more time to save up.
do you not qualify for Section 8?
No, and just because me and Drill got this apartment together and he ended up losing it, I can't get help for.
Because there's an unpaid balance, is that right? Okay, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, would you be able to possibly go to, let's say, a women's shelter with all 3 children on a temporary basis if this court were not to proceed with this case today?
Yes, sir.
Have you talked to anybody from a shelter regarding that?
No, because it hasn't came across my mind if that was an option.
Okay. But you do have contact with the shelter and that you have a representative from the shelter in the court with you, right?
Yes, sir.
What about food? Since obviously the petition raises a concern about malnourishment, what would you be able to provide the children with as far as suitable food?
I'm able to cook.
Oh, let's start with
I
your
get food
income.
stamps.
What's your income as far as food stamps or any type of other public
Food
assistance?
stamps, I get almost 300 in food stamps.
Is that a month?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Was just me alone. My income, I just started working, so I haven't even got my first paycheck yet. So I don't know that at the moment.
Where are you working?
Little Caesars.
Okay, what are your hours there?
Well, right now I'm going 3 to 8. But
Okay.
most of the times I stay until closing, so that's from 3 to 10.
And are you looking at daycare for the children if the children are all returned to you today?
Yes, sir.
And where's
There's
it?
one right there by Little Caesars that I was looking into.
Do you know the cost offhand?
No, not yet.
So where you're living now, does it have access to refrigerator, to food storage, things of that nature?
Yes, sir.
Do you have infant clothes and diapers and things of that nature, cribs?
Yes, sir.
And when you're working, how would the child be fed on every 3 to 4 hour basis?
I'll have them until 3 until I go to work. So I will find a babysitter or find someone to watch them, which I'm pretty sure my mom would be willing to help me, and she takes good care of them.
you've had an opportunity, I think the attorney for the agency asked you, you've read these petitions, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there any other comment that you want to make on the petitions that you think they're inaccurate, or maybe you have a different perspective on this?
I just think y'all should give me a chance.
You heard the doctor testify that usually when you go in for prenatal care or a child is born, you're told about how frequently children should see pediatricians. You've heard her say that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Was that told to you? If you can remember, okay.
Yes and no.
Tell us what you mean by that.
Like when I left the hospital without Andrea, they didn't really say much, even though I
Yeah, let's
just
not
got
use the
done.
names, okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, no problem, go ahead.
Even though I just got done having her, I just think they should have told me anyways, even though she wasn't coming home with me.
They give you a sheet of paper or anything with
They
any
didn't give me-
instructions? Okay.
No, they didn't give me nothing, not even proof that I even had her.
What about when the other two were born? Were you given instructions and did you follow?
With my oldest, yes. My second, they didn't give me nothing. They just gave me his little footprints and proof of me, or proof of me having him.
Well, with the oldest two children, did you take them to appointments after their birth?
Yes, sir, I did.
And for what purpose and what was the frequency?
For the shots, for one, to keep them updated on their shots.
And when they were removed from you, were they up to date on the shots?
No, they're still not. Or I don't think they are, or they might be now, but
Are you okay with them being up to date on their shots? Is that yes?
yes, sir.
And what else did you take them for? How frequently were your appointments with kids?
I want to say when we were in Texas, they seen a doctor. Let's see. I want to say 5 times, maybe 6 times within the month.
Is that the longest place that you stayed in your travels? Was Texas?
Yes.
Okay. And why aren't they up to date in their shots now? If you tell us.
We're always moving around. I didn't really have them from April, or no, wait, from. I'm trying to say. Can't remember when I didn't have them, because I signed my guardianship over for 6 months to my mom for a little bit until we got our place.
Did Child Protective Services know about this?
No, they
Okay.
didn't.
Okay. Is it your intention to remain in this local area, Lenawee County or Adrian?
For a good minute, yes.
Uh,
Eventually, I want to save my money, buy a house out in the country, just live out in the country where no one's at.
Still in Lenawee County?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so your intention is to stay local. Is that what we're hearing?
Yes, sir.
Just out in the country? Okay, yes.
Yes, sir.
You have transportation right now?
A little bit, yes. I got a bike that my caseworker gave me.
If you have to go take a child to the hospital, you have access to the public transportation, the
Oh,
Dollar
yes.
Ride, Lenawee Transportation,
I
Jeff's
got
Rides.
bus tickets saved up.
Anything else you wish to comment on these two petitions here today? There may be a question from the other attorneys, okay?
Ms. Heiss?
I'm okay to break if you want to break, but I'm okay to go ahead too,
Well, finish your direct us or?
Thank you, I will, okay. The boys saw the doctor, you said 5 to 6 times 1 month when you were in Texas, is that right? What was wrong with them that they went so much?
Well, see, me being a new parent and my first child, everything was still kind of new to me. He made me worried a few times. He was a little too warm, or there was times where he was teething and I didn't know what to do. Just little things, I guess, just to make sure it was be on a safe side than not. I
Okay,
guess.
so you had a baby in 2022, 2023, and 2024, right?
Yes.
So you're still kind of a new mom because your oldest one is still young, but you have 3 children. When you were pregnant for the last child, you said you were in and out of the hospital a lot. That was gallbladder,
Yes.
and you were tired and in pain. Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you using THC?
Yes, ma'am.
What other medicines were you used?
That's it.
The hospitals didn't give you anything for pain?
Yes, they did. They gave me something that starts with an M.
For pain?
Yes.
Okay.
Something for pain.
Did they give you a prescription to take home, or you had to go to the hospital?
I had to go to the hospital.
So when this last baby was born, you didn't get that gallbladder removed as recommended?
No, because I want to hurry up and get my kids back. And right now, I'm watching what I'm eating. There's certain things I can't eat and I can eat. So I just have to stick to what I can eat.
So since the oldest child was born, you were pretty much pregnant with the next child. How did that second child's pregnancy go?
I was a high risk still. With all of them, I was a high risk.
Was that gallbladder acting up with all the pregnancies?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were tired?
Yes, ma'am.
When you say that you were tired and you had the baby, the little girl, you wanted her to take that pacifier and you were tired, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you used some words and you don't know whether you used the F word or not, right?
No, ma'am.
You don't know?
I don't remember. I don't recall.
But did you expect the baby to understand that you were tired?
No. I wouldn't expect her to understand because she's an infant. She's a newborn.
Right.
So she latches onto the binky and she takes it. She takes it.
Okay. When you were between houses so much, that was after the first child was born. He was with you during those many moves, and the second child was with you during those many moves. How did you get diapers during that time?
We were always in and out of shelters, tents. We always found a way to get diapers, wipes.
Was it stressful?
Times, yes, ma'am.
If this doctor says that the kids didn't have enough food, you think you're more right than the doctor? The doctor says that kids didn't have enough food.
I always made sure they. If that means I didn't eat that day, that means I didn't eat that day.
So you think they were healthy weights?
They were heavy to me. What do you want me to say?
They were what?
They were heavy to me. I don't know what you want me to say. They didn't feel like they were under nourishment.
They didn't look skinny to you?
No, they didn't. They don't.
So you still think this doctor is wrong?
Yeah, I do.
And the children have been out of your care, the older one since June, right? So almost 4 months?
Yes.
Have you taken some classes to learn more?
Yes.
What kind of classes have you taken?
I've done some parenting classes. I've done a little bit. I've kind of gone to the pregnancy center facility and done some other classes, but then I kind of stopped.
Have you learned anything about nutrition?
A little bit.
Okay. And when you see your kids now, do you give them good nutrition?
Every now and then. I mean, there's sometimes where I bring pizza, Wendy's to the visit.
Is that what you call? Is that healthy food to you?
I mean, I don't really get to see them as much. So if I want to bring them that food just for that day, because I don't see them, I'm gonna spoil them that day. I know it's not healthy food, but it's something I want to give them.
It's your only chance to show us how you can parent, right?
I mean, if you want me to show you how I parent, give me my kids back.
How about cookies and candy? Have you been given those at visits?
I mean, there was one time I did that, yes.
Was it a 9 a.m. visit?
No, I did that at 3.
Okay. So do you recall a time when I was there to visit?
I don't remember.
At Catholic Charities or the church area place?
For a little bit, but you weren't in there that long.
Right. Did you serve cookies and candy that day?
I don't remember.
So is there any support or help you could use to raise these children to not be at a 0%, less than 0%, less than 1% body weight? Any help you need?
No, I don't. If you give me my kids and I can show you, then there'll be a difference. Give me a chance. I'm not pregnant no more.
You say you've got diapers ready?
Yes, I do.
What size are those?
4s, 5s, and I got newborns and size 1s. Preparing for her to get into the ones, but I'm already getting that started.
Now, you testified that the baby had a bottle before she left the hospital.
Before y'all took her from me. She had 10.
I'm not with the department. I'm not CPS. So you mean when CPS took the baby?
Aren't y'all in the same category? But yes.
And before she left, you did serve her a bottle that she took.
Yes.
And how
I
many
did that.
ounces?
10. Again, 10 ounces.
How do you remember 10 ounces?
Because that was the last time I ever seen my daughter after y'all took her from me.
Okay. What?
After the second day I had her. The second day, ma'am. The second day.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm gonna remember that day.
And what was in the bottle for her to eat?
Formula.
Do you know what kind?
It was similar like the orange kind.
Very good. Do you know that your daughter, was born and tested positive for THC?
Yes.
And is that a healthy plan that you made for the child?
No, but I did that so I can eat and keep food down for her. And I told the doctors that.
Your prenatal doctor, is
Yes.
that the person who told you to do the THC?
Yes.
What's that person's name?
Zelensky? I don't know how to say his name. I don't. It's a hard name. It's
Where is this doctor?
in Toledo. He has an office in Toledo and in here, but most of the time he's at the Toledo.
Do you know what road his office is on?
No.
Have you ever been to his office?
I've been to the one here, but he's not really here most of the time. So
Where's
when he is here, I see him at the office that he rents.
What street is that on?
You know where the old hospital used to be?
Yes,
Behind there.
Riverside?
Yes.
Okay, and then you indicate that your mom and aunt are supporters for you,
Yes.
and that if the children were in your care, you would rely on them for daycare maybe
Yes, ma'am.
and support.
Yes, ma'am.
And have they been approved by DHS to provide care or have placement?
I mean, we've already tried to do that here. We try to get them to get the kids.
And were they approved for placement or caregiving?
No, but that doesn't mean that they can watch them. They've changed over the years.
When you signed the guardianship to your mother for 6 months, do you know what month that started?
No, I'm trying to think, sorry.
Yeah.
I want to say either February, March.
Would that have been when the littlest boy was about 1?
That was when my oldest was gonna turn 2.
Yeah, okay.
So yes.
So where did you get the forms for that?
Poorhouse from here.
And do you know if it was a limited guardianship or full?
It was only for 6 months. Like I stated.
And did dad sign too?
Yes, he did.
So did you have contact with the children while they were in the garden?
Yes, I did.
Okay. How often did you have contact?
Every night. I talked to them before they went to bed, video time them. I even got pictures from them during the day.
Did you pay for any of the diapers or food or anything like that?
Sometimes.
Okay. Is Jarrell married to anybody else at this time?
Yes, he is.
Was that before a relationship prior to you?
He was married when we met.
Okay. And he's still married now?
Yes, he is.
Are you married to anybody?
No,
All right.
never been married. Haven't gotten that lucky.
Okay, I have nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, redirect Ms. Nevis.
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Brown, any questions for your client?
Right. You know, like Gary Lyden was asking about guardianship, but indeed it was actually a delegation of parental rights for 6 months at a time, right?
Yes. Sorry. don't know what the difference is.
Child Protective Services had a copy of that because they acknowledged that in the petition that your aunt had that power, correct?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Ms. Heiss, any follow-up questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seat. I would suggest to all that we break for lunch and reconvene around 1:30.
Yes, Your Honor.